Hi guys, welcome back to another edition of Max and Nikki 1000th Time Reactions.
Where we react to a song after listening to it for our 1000th time.
We release 3 videos a day,
Every day.
so please hit that subscribe button.
And turn on post notifications to not miss out on all this amazing content of ours.
That's right, Nikki. What are we going to listen to right now, Nikki?
We're going to listen to California Dreamin' by the Mamas and the Papas.
Now, we've heard this many, many times.
Can't tell you how many times we've heard this. Countless times. Thousands and thousands of times. Because it was always on heavy rotation on the oldie stations when we were younger.
And also, we're from California, so I think we'd have to have listened to it.
Now, before we
get
get into reacting to this song, just want to remind you all, like we usually do, that we have another channel called Max and Nikki, on which we perform oldies tunes, jazz standards, and originals in that vein.
And we got comedy videos on there as well. But for right now, let's take a listen to California Dreamin' by the Mamas and the Papas.
For our 1000th time.
Here we go.
All the leaves are brown, and the sky is gray. I've been for a walk on a winter's day. I'd be safe and warm if I was in LA. California dreaming on such a winter's day. Stopped into a church, I passed along the way. Well, I got down on my knees, and I pretend to pray. You know the preacher like the cold. He knows I'm gonna stay. California dreaming on such a winter's All the leaves are brown, and the sky is gray. I've been for a walk on a winter's day. If I didn't tell her, I could leave today. California dreaming on such a winter's day. California dreaming on such a winter's day. California dreaming on such a winter's
All right, California Dreamin' by the Mamas and the Papas.
Yeah. It's a great tune.
It's a great tune. Usually when we listen to something that we've listened to so many times, we listen with the headphones on, we'll discover some new things. But man, there's not that much new
There's
stuff.
a couple of new things
There
that
are
I
a couple
will
new
discuss,
things that
actually.
Sure. First of all, the panning.
The panning in the beginning, which is interesting, you have...
It starts off with the guitar on the left ear, extremely to the left.
Yes, but then you also hear the male vocals on the right ear, and then the female vocals on the left ear.
And actually, for a lot of the tune, you don't hear anything in the center.
Nothing's in the center. Yeah.
The only things that I found to be in the center were the flute solo, which is an alto flute, and which was actually completely improvised. That solo, which is a very memorable solo.
Well, it's also interesting to have used an alto flute.
Sure.
I think they wanted to maybe hit for whatever reason, maybe they wanted to get a little bit lower, some lower notes that the
Well,
the
it was.
flautist wanted
I think
to
it
hit
was
or something like
the
that.
flautist was a member of the Wrecking Crew because
Oh,
this
really?
was recorded in Los Angeles.
And maybe it had to do with the key it was in as well. You know.
Well, exactly. I actually looked this up. It was
looked this
recorded in
up?
C sharp.
You say you looked this up?
I looked it up. No, I looked it up. It was recorded in C sharp, which is an interesting key to play a
correct
song.
me if I'm wrong. I may be wrong on this. It's been a while since but I think the flute goes down to D actually. So I think that's
Max
the
was a
reason.
music major actually, in college.
Right? But I
and he actually, studied music beyond that too.
sure, but but it's been a while since I've arranged stuff for for any orchestral instruments. But I think the flute goes down to only D. So I
Right,
think
but
that's
this
the
is
reason why.
an alto flute.
Also, what an interesting key to write in. C
Exactly.
Sharp. That's not
Usually
a
songs are
common-
not done in C sharp.
That's not a common key to write for on a pop tune. I would say.
I'm saying this right now, yet we're working on some new recordings right now, and
one of the songs
songs
is in-
I did is in C sharp.
Well, I will say,
but the reason I did it is,
or you could say D flat.
or you could say D. But the reason I did it is because it works well for the range of my singing voice, and so maybe that worked well for Denny Doherty's singing voice, who has that
He has
that little solo lead,
and man,
there.
he does well on that.
does well on
There's
that
one
part.
part where he goes. He kind of does this.
You know, you preacher like that part.
He kind of really gets into it at one point, which is pretty cool.
But it's
But that was more or less in the center, though, right?
so I was going to say
that
the
was in
flute
the-
solo is in the center and his lead part is in the
Although
center.
what's interesting, I don't know how this was done, but for some reason I'm hearing it a little bit more, like a little bit right of center. Am I incorrect in saying that?
I don't know. I don't know. We'd have to re-listen to that. But I will say this: it's interesting that they chose to put the bass and the drums on the right
You're kind of going like this.
with John Phillips and Danny Doherty's voices on the right, and they chose to put the guitar on the left with the female singers, Michelle Phillips and Cass Elliot. That's so interesting because you would think that they would switch that up because, male's voices are going to be a little bit bassier, right? So you wouldn't want to put that with the deeper instruments, right? Arrangement-wise, I mean, would
no.
you? I mean, that sounds...
Because they had the bass on the right
that
side.
seems a little counterintuitive, actually.
Well, I will say though that the male voices are not. They have quite. They're tenors. They're
Sure,
tenors.
that's true.
There's male voices.
And,
but I will say
this was
another
actually produced by Lou Adler, actually.
really?
Famous producer, record executive.
But also, I was going to mention, I know we said that it started with the male vocals in the right, but actually, if you hear,
I was
going to
say-
something, there is something that a male vocal that is in the left ear in the very beginning.
Not only that,
it's
not
hidden,
only
kind
that.
of, actually.
At the end, you hear female voices in the right.
You hear
actually.
female voices in the right. It kind of does this crossover.
Also,
thing
there
or
were
something like that.
there were a few sort of ornamentations that I heard throughout the song. There was a piano briefly played in
really?
the.
I didn't know.
I
What
heard
is
my
that?
left ear.
But also, what's also kind of interesting about the guitar in the beginning, it kind of lends itself to making one think of it being a folk tune actually at first, but it actually it's categorized. As we know now, it's a sunshine pop tune actually.
But actually, this song
it came out in
it came out in 1965,
which I didn't know that until just a moment ago.
1965, which
And that
seems
it sounds
very groundbreaking for the
it
time.
It does sound quite different for a
It
1965
sounds
song.
more like a maybe
later
a later
60s.
later 60s song.
Yeah.
So I feel like this was sort of a seminal song and probably pretty influential on bands and music that would be released just not too long afterward.
Sure. Even I would say even on the psychedelic movement, maybe.
Sure,
that
definitely.
There's a quality about it that has. I mean, it's not psychedelic, but there's a quality about it that you can see the trajectory. I guess.
Sure, and it sounds like it's ahead of its time by maybe 2 years or something like that.
Sure, or maybe 1 year. I would
Yeah.
say.
But it's a great song.
Although it was released late 1965. However, as you said, it
was written in 1963.
It was written in 1963.
It was written by John Phillips and Michelle Phillips. Initially, I think the first verse was written by John Phillips. He brought it to Michelle Phillips, and they were living in New York at the time, and it was the winter, and they were missing the warm
They were
weather
dreaming of California.
So
But
they
I will
wrote
say,
that, and they wrote it about
I
that.
mean, 1963. Now that makes it definitely that's pretty crazy that this was written in 1963.
But it probably started off as it had a different sound.
yeah,
at
it
that
might could have had a different sound. Production can really help create a different quality to a song.
Sure.
I just do want to touch on the flute solo. When I was in high school, this friend of mine said that she thought that the flute solo was not that great, and that her mom, who also played the flute, and also recorded, I guess, was a session musician, thought that this flute solo wasn't that great. But I do think it is great.
It's memorable.
It's memorable. It's not trying to do too much. It's just it's doing a good job.
It's memorable and
It's
melodic.
melodic. I mean,
You saw us
You remember
doing
it.
our
You
moving our
remember it.
fingers to. We have it memorized in our heads. We've listened to it
least for
so
the most part.
many times, and a great solo is going to be memorable, and you can sing along to it. And it was improvised too, which makes it even more
and
special.
a great solo also. Well, okay, you can try and show off by doing playing fast and virtuosic.
Sure.
But that's not what soloing is about, really.
I mean, yeah, obviously Charlie Parker played a lot of notes in his solos.
Sure, but
he
he was breaking ground with that.
he was breaking ground
with
and
that. Was
also
a different kind of
he
thing.
did it in a very melodic way.
He did it in a very melodic way. But I think that's a whole
That's a whole
jazz
different-
history lesson right there, and all of it. I mean, there's also a whole thing about.
I actually started off as a saxophonist, an alto saxophonist.
I mean, one
which
could
is-
even argue that there's there's a racial component to him wanting to play fast, actually, too. About. Well, I mean, there's
Anyway,
a whole
we're
jazz
veering off
history lesson
topic.
there.
But this song, it is really good. And one thing I wanted to mention real quick is that Denny Doherty has the solo part on this, but it's interesting that Cass Elliot maybe had the most prominent solo career out of the four, and yet she's just kind of relegated to singing with the group. She doesn't have a solo part of this
Right,
song,
right. I mean, she could really belt it out on her vocals, but I think perhaps one could argue that maybe. I mean, I wonder how the song would sound if she took the lead, on those verses.
I think Denny Doherty does it justice, and he
think,
does it right.
it would have a different quality. Sometimes, even if somebody has although I will say Denny Doherty has quite a good voice.
Sure, no, that's what I'm saying.
But sometimes, you have to, when you're producing something, you got to choose what is best aesthetically
For the song.
for the song, even if somebody might be better technically.
That's why, if you fast forward to like a band like The Cars, it had two lead singers, Rick Ocasek and oh God, I'm blanking on his name right now.
Well,
Benjamin Orr.
Oh, okay.
And Rick Ocasek wrote most of the songs, but he would have Ben Orr sing maybe half of the songs, the lead. And you're like, well, why did he do that? And I guess he just thought, oh, this would be better for Ben to sing, even though they kind of both sound similar anyway.
I don't know about that. I don't know.
But like
about
that song,
Well, maybe a little bit, but not always. No.
what's that song called? Drive, I think. It's from the 80s. I think it does sound better with Ben Orr than with Rick Ocasek singing.
All right. Well, we've
Really
digressed
veered
here.
off topic.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a great song. There
Yes.
you go.
Yeah, it's a great song, and I think
We'll be
if
reacting
you-
to more Sunshine Pop. I would say maybe like a song. I would say maybe songs by the Association might be considered Sunshine Pop, perhaps.
and
Forever My Love or Windy.
and would you call the Turtles Sunshine Pop?
I would call that Sunshine
Yeah.
Pop. Yes, definitely Sunshine Pop.
Well, anyway, we'll react to those later, but for right now, I think that'll do it for California Dreamin' and our reaction to it.
Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications if you like what you heard and saw today, so you don't miss out on more Max and Nicky reaction videos.
Please keep tuning in.